searching the internet, looking to network, and hitting the pavement. We've done the work to help you get ready for your next job. We've got the experts and the latest tips, and we got you. This is Job Hunt New York.
Hi, and welcome to Job Hunt New York. I'm Carrie Barrett. For the next half hour, we're going to help you try and find and capture a great job, but also discover the ways that you can advance in that job and advance in your career once you get there. Joining us today is Susan Asher. She is the CEO of the Asher Group. She is also an executive leader and a business coach. Susan, it is fantastic to have you with us. I'm going to jump right into this. And
Sure.
you and I have had conversations in the past. We talk about soft skills when it comes to interviewing, but they are so important, and often they're somewhat dismissed. There are five P's is what you call it, the 5 P's of the interviewing process. And they're mostly soft skills. Do you want to run through them for us? Can you explain a little bit about what they are?
Sure. Yes. So we're going to talk about positioning and process, persistence, presentation, and your personality. Because when you go on an interview, everything counts. First of all, this is not a sprint. This is something that is going to take a bit of time, and it's a process. So before you start your applications, you really have to take note of what are some of the companies that you might want to apply to. What makes you valuable? What have you accomplished? These are very important things. Nobody's going to hire you because you were responsible for things. You're going to be hired because you have accomplishments that you're going to bring to your next employer. So job hunting, again, is strategic. We don't just go out there and start sending resumes blindly. We see who our connections are before we write to the company or send our post into the company. Persistence, again, I said earlier, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're going to be discouraged at times, but understand and believe that you are going to find your next great dream job. Now, when it comes to your presentation, and this is very important, and I know you know this, Kerry, as someone who's been in the camera for her whole life, in front of the camera for her whole life, and that is, how do you present yourself? It's one thing when you walk into a company. We know that we have to dress a certain way, behave a certain way. But when you're on a Zoom, this is very, very important. What does your background look like? What is behind you? Is the dog barking? Are the dogs running around? Are the doors slamming? These are all part of who you become in the interview. And then finally, your personality. And I think it's really important to note and to let you know that it's really important to smile when you're on camera, smile when you're in that interview, be happy about the fact that you're lucky enough that you were able to get in front of this company for potentially the job that's going to be your dream job.
I love it. And I want to talk to you in just a second about what are the things we do need to include on those resumes. I know it's not responsibilities, it's accomplishments. We'll dive into that specifically in a moment. But I do want to talk to you about persistence. That was your, I think, third P within that framework. And you mentioned it's not a sprint, it is a marathon. I want to ask you to dive a little bit deeper into that. I know that there is likely a difference in how long it takes to secure a job, depending on your past experience, the level of the position that you're applying for.
Right.
But is there sort of a, if you haven't found anything in 6 months, you're doing something wrong? Or is there sort of a standard operating procedure?
Well, we kind of say that for every 1,000 that you're earning, it could potentially take you a week. But now that might be 1,500. It could take you a week. But sometimes things happen overnight. So it's difficult to judge that. But I will say this, there are a lot of things that people do that hold them back. One of the most important things is when you see a posting, you have to look within your LinkedIn and you have to dig a little deeper. Who do you, or in your personal circle, who do you know at that company that can help you get that resume of yours through the black hole? A lot of companies give bonuses out for referring people. It's a lot less expensive than paying an agency fee. So if you know someone at the company, that is a huge help. You have to use your network, Kerry. It's very, very important. People don't understand. Truthfully, it's very often not what you know, but it's who you know. So keep digging, keep looking, keep telling everybody that you know, obviously not your coworkers, but everyone that you know that you're looking for this new opportunity. Get yourself out to networking events, to conferences, and speak to people and let them know that you're looking for a new position. This is very, very important. And you have to keep doing it until something clicks, and it will, because it only takes one click and you're on to your next career position.
I love it. All right, let's dive into that resume question that I had. What is it that makes a resume stand out in a good way or a bad way? Both, maybe.
Well, both. Okay, a couple things. When you're looking at the header of your resume, we no longer put our address on there for lots of reasons. Number one, many jobs are remote or semi-remote. Number two, we don't crazies exist everywhere. They're also in human resource departments. So hopefully not a lot of them, but we don't want people knowing where we're living. Secondly, along with that comes your LinkedIn URL. I cannot tell you how many people I have worked with who don't have the LinkedIn URL on the resume. And that is critical. And it's not copying and pasting it. It's rewriting it in its entirety. Why? Because your LinkedIn URL is owned by LinkedIn and it's a PDF. Mm-hmm. So that's very important for your header. We take off the objective. That is what dinosaurs put on resumes now. We don't need an objective. We have the objective. Nobody has time to read all that stuff anymore.
You're right,
you may have a cover letter, short, sweet, and to the point. And then I would like to see at the top of your resume, not your education, that goes at the bottom. Maybe if you're an entry level and you have a high GPA. But for most of us listening here today, we're people sort of in the middle to higher ranks of the job search. And I would say that the most important thing is to have a subject which includes your accomplishments. So you would tick off maybe 5, 7, 9 accomplishments that you've curated from all of the positions that you have worked in. Beneath that, you would put professional experience and you would put your chronological experience with the dates. And then finally, your education. Please don't put on their references. We know we're going to get references when the time comes. That's just a filler. If you have 10 or more years of experience, you're probably going to have a 2-page resume if you've really accomplished some stuff. If you're an entry level, okay, it might be 1-pager. However, everybody, even an entry level, has accomplishments, and it's your job as a candidate to ferret out what those accomplishments were so that companies can see that you're bringing value to the organization.
And if you are looking at perhaps different sorts of organizations, should you be I'm focusing in on this accomplishment thing because I get it. It's not I'm responsible for growing sales. It's I grew sales by 75% in the first 6 months or whatever. So do you have to sort of cherry pick the accomplishments that you want to highlight on your resume for different sorts of positions or different sorts of companies or industries?
Okay, you just hit on another point. Your resume is not static. Your resume evolves from a Word document. So every time you look to send a resume somewhere, you need to know what that job spec looks like. And you want to, again, curate your resume to include some of those words, some of the verbiage. And the reason for that is that if you do go through the black hole of the internet, the algorithm is only going to pick up on the words that match. So, I mean, there are people out there who have said to me, oh, yeah, well, I haven't gotten anything. I said, well, have you changed the resume for every single job? Oh, no, do I have to do that? Of course you do, because different positions are looking for different skill sets. So very, very important. And you did hit on that, and I'm sorry I didn't mention it, but the metrics are very, very important. Anytime we can use numbers or percentages, that's what stands out to an organization and really differentiates you as a candidate.
Well, and I got to tell you, I've been in that black hole of the internet submitting resumes before. And let me tell you, like some of the things that I'm not qualified for are sort of self-esteem damaging. I know I could do this job, right? You're asking me to babysit. I have 3 kids. You're telling me I'm not qualified, but you're right. It's all about the keywords and how they're filtering what it is that you put in there. So that is super, super helpful. I want to ask you another question. There's so much that we could go into, but I have heard about a behavioral interview. And heck, I might have been on one before and just never realized it. But what
Never
is a
realized.
behavioral interview and how the heck do you prepare for one?
Okay, so by the way, obviously it's best if you have a coach to help you with that. But if you don't, you can Google what are the top behavioral interview questions. And what a behavioral interview is essentially, Carrie, is that we're going to ask questions such as what, tell me about a time that you disagreed with your boss on what an outcome of a project should be. Tell me about a time that you had an employee that came in consistently late. How did you handle that? Because we want to see, as employers, will your behaviors, your past behaviors, reflect on the future? In the past, we hired on chronological ticking off things that, okay, yes, I did this, yes, I did that. Now companies are really hiring more on behavior. Because what we found out is that we hired for skill, but we fired for behavior. So behavioral questions are extremely important. As you get higher up the ladder, part of those become leadership questions. And how do you lead a team? How do you engage your team? All very, they're very open-ended questions. And again, you do want to have obviously good answers, but I think a lot of it is also the confidence with which you answer those questions.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you a big question. We've got like 30 seconds. So it may mean that we need to bring you back again at another time. But how do you answer the question, what are your salary expectations? Can you answer that in 30 seconds?
Yes. Okay. Well, you know what I'm earning. You don't actually, they don't know what they're earning anymore. So I see that the job has been posted between 150 and 175. Obviously, money is not the overriding factor for me. It's more about what I will learn and what I can bring to the company. So I'm open with regard to that. And I'd like to learn more about the position and sort of table that for a conversation towards the end of our conversation here today.
That's so smart. You don't write yourself off at the top end or at the bottom end. Susan, as always, it is fantastic to talk to you. I learn more every time we get together. If you don't mind sticking around, we're out of time right now, but we have a lot more to talk about right after this. Welcome back, Susan. We're going to jump right back into this topic. So we talked about getting the job last time around. Now we're talking about how to advance within it. Are there key strategies for advancing in your career or specifically perhaps advancing within your organization, getting promoted?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And I want to say right now, and I know there are many teams that continue to work virtually, but for those of you who are, and I am going to say lucky enough to be back in the office, take advantage of being seen. We used to call it FaceTime, almost as a negative thing that you couldn't leave the office before your superior did. But in today's world, if you're the person, if it's optional to come in, okay? Because you will see and be seen in terms of what is going on. I think that's really, really critical. You want to speak up. You want to come up with new ideas. I mean, you don't want to be a bully and you don't want to be obnoxious, but you do want to be able to speak up and have that confidence to be able to add value to the organization. You want to pay attention to the people who are running the organization. What attributes do they have? What characteristics do they have that you want to mirror or emulate? Most important is you want to ask your superior as time goes on, not every week, not even every month, but perhaps when a project is done. You want the feedback. You want the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that's the only way that you can get ahead, that you can try and correct something for the future, or know that you did something so well that you want to do it again. And again, this thing about getting noticed in the workplace largely comes from, and I see this, I mean, it cracks me up when people are on Zooms and they don't have their camera on. So if you are in a company where I know, tear my hair out. If you're in a company that does everything virtually, make sure you are seen. Make sure that you are dressed for the part of the way your organization wants to see you. Demonstrate your leadership skills. And what I mean by that is when there's a task at hand that needs to be done and someone asks for a volunteer, be that person. You can be that person over and over again, because we know that there are 1 or 2% of the people that do that. And then everybody else is sort of waiting to see what exactly happens. But the other thing that I think is really, really critical, Carrie, is that you want to really understand and make a list. We talked in the last segment about accomplishments. Keep track of your accomplishments. What project did you do, and what were the outcomes that really benefited the bottom line of the company, or someone in the group, or your team, or whatever it may be. But you have to keep those accomplishments, because when it comes time for your performance review, you're going to maybe forget what some of them were. And now you're going to be in front of your supervisor, and you're going to have he or she is going to see, wow, hey, Carrie really got prepared for this. I got to listen to this. So all those things really factor into how you can ameliorate your career and really get ahead and really stand up for what you've done.
I absolutely love it. I want to ask you a question. You mentioned paying attention to the people who are running the organization. I want to follow up on that question. How important
that's a loaded one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll try and dial it back a little bit. But how important is it to pay attention to the people who are the ones who are maybe not necessarily leaders, like at the top level, but they are being promoted? Should you be watching? Who are they interacting with? Who are they getting in front of? How do you leverage that?
Yes, you want to do that. And again, when it comes to being able to be in the office, it's okay to knock on your boss's door and say, hey, you got a minute? And just say, hey, how was your day going? I mean, it can be a little bit personal. It doesn't always have to be business, because we want to retain and promote the people that have leadership qualities, the people that have, as we now know, what used to be called manners, we're going to call it now emotional intelligence, right? People who have heart, people who have empathy, people who, it's not just about work. And we really see that evolving in the workplace, Carrie, where people want more. Not every company has it yet, but they want more work-life balance. They want to be engaged with the people that they work with. They want to like where they're working. They want to respect the culture that they're working in. And those are the things that really, I think, are very, very important today. So does that answer your question?
100%. And you brought it all together. Nicely done. You talked about personality and the importance of cultural fit and sort of those soft skills that we talk about. And you're absolutely right. They all fit together. It isn't always just about work. It's about even adhering or aligning yourself with the people around you. You mentioned leadership skills and manners. I want to follow up on that little nugget there, because it's so important. And it's not just leadership skills. I hear a lot of people talk about executive presence. And in fact, I know you work with people on developing executive presence. What exactly is that? And how can you leverage it to get yourself promoted?
Okay, so let me see if I can remember from my book, The 7 Ups of Executive Presence. So first of all, show up, right? Show up, and that means turn the camera on. Show up, listen up, lighten up. I don't mean tell jokes, but lighten up. You can have a few wisecracks here and there and make people laugh. Follow up on a meeting. If you said you're going to do something, follow up. All of these things are really, all of the ups are very important to executive presence. Dressing up. And again, the world has changed to business casual, but it doesn't matter. You still can look neat. You have to look at how the top executive wears business casual. He or she may wear a sweater and pants. Okay. But that means maybe leave the ripped jeans home, even if jeans are okay. Again, this may sound old school, but right now, until we really have come 180 degrees the other way, I think it's really, really important. So, looking the part of what an executive looks like in your company. Now, that's going to look different if you're working for Twitter or Facebook than it's going to
Sure.
look for Johnson and Johnson or Bank of
JP
America.
Morgan or yeah.
Right. So, but all of these things factor, and the way you treat people, treat people the way you want to be treated. All right. Not so much the way they want to be treated, but the way you want to be treated, because you're kind of showing them as a leader that this is the type of behavior that we're looking to excel at within our organization. So you have
so
to,
smart.
Yeah. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead. No, so you have to be the one as a leader, you have to lead. And that means everything from the way you look to the way you speak to the way you show up. Are you late to me? If you're late to every meeting because you think you're the boss, well, guess what? People are going to start being late to every meeting because they don't think it's that important. So everything we do as a leader is something that people who work for us will look at, and we are the ones that have to set those standards within our organizations.
And maybe dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. I've heard that sort
That's
of
very,
added.
very true. But that dress thing is so different today, Carrie. You know that. It's
Absolutely,
it's really
100%.
hard to say that, but yes.
I have pajama pants on, so that tells you anything.
That's
Let
so
me
fun.
ask you this.
Oh,
Is it appropriate to ask for a promotion? Let's say you've been at the job for a while, you're doing a good job, you've gotten good feedback, but you haven't heard anything about a promotion or, getting a little bit more money behind your salary. Do you ask? And if you do, how do you
yes.
do it?
I think you have to get your ask in gear, and you have to ask, because no ask, no get. And you sort of have to lay the groundwork with your superior that even when you first come into the job, one of the reasons I'm here is because, you told me there was so much opportunity. I want to do everything that I possibly can to get to that next step. And I need your help in that. So if you see me doing something well, please let me know. If I'm not doing something well, please let me know. But my intention here as an employee is to ask for that next promotion. And I'm going to keep my eye on whatever job postings come up. And I need your help in that arena. And that's just being authentic and genuine, 2 words that really honestly are so overused, but it's really important to be true. Okay. To be true, have those conversations with that's the kind of relationship you really want to have with a great boss, that you can tell them not everything, but truthfully the way you feel and what you're looking to do and how you want to help them. Because if you're doing well in your job, well, then they're going to do well in theirs.
And recognize their perspective is a little bit
Yes.
different. They're not interested necessarily in how much you're making, but how that additional salary will benefit the company at the end of the day.
And that's why I say, Carrie, you have to keep track of your accomplishments, because when the performance review comes, let's say there's no promotion available at the moment, but you do want to, get the most bang for your buck with your raise. And how do you do that? You make sure that you are clear on all of the accomplishments that you've had, and you're going to set them forth in your performance review.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. This is sort of a high level question, and maybe there's a couple of best practices, standard operating procedures that you always suggest or advise. What are some of the other things that you should be doing in order to be recognized or considered for a promotion? You mentioned executive presence. You mentioned looking and acting the part. Are there some other things that we may not be aware of that we should be doing in order to get that consideration?
Yes, I think here's the other thing, that there are certain things that we want to do, and I'm not talking necessarily about going back for a higher degree, but maybe there are things that you can do for yourself, taking certain courses, going to conferences, asking to go to conference. Hey, I just saw this conference and it's going to be talking about, I know that happened to me years and years ago. I raised my hand and I wanted to go to a conference, and it was a conference for women, and I was the only woman in the company. And the CEO looked at me and said, well, why would you want to go to that? I said, because it's about leadership for women and so forth and so on. And he ended up, yes, he let me go and he paid for it. So all those kinds of things, the educational kinds of things that you can do, the networking kinds of things that you can do. Networking doesn't start when you're out of a job. Networking is something that, well, look at us, Carrie, where we started in the parking lot of a supermarket, right? Because we were
right before the pandemic broke.
Right, before COVID. And then I had you at one of my events as a speaker. So, and that's how you cultivate your network. So that also I think is very, very important, because if you're visible, not only within your organization, but outside of the organization, people will take notice that you are special and you are different.
I love it. And Susan, you're right. I'll never forget that. We were going to a restaurant and it was shut down that morning. And we met in the King's grocery lot or grocery parking lot and shared a sandwich in our vehicles. You are amazing, Susan. As always, it is fantastic to see you. And like I said, Carrie, I learn something every time that we speak. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Carrie. Thanks so much.
Finding a job and being happy in your career can at times be challenging. We hope we've helped a little bit in putting you on the path to success. Thanks for watching Job Hunt New York. I'm Carrie Barrett.